So good evening, everybody. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay there. We're having a few little technical problems, but we're going to fire ahead. So welcome everyone to this evening's Fundit Wednesday webinar. I'm Michelle Reid. I'm project manager with Fundit. We have with us this evening two incredible creative business ladies. So we have Elaine Fallon from Brookwood Pottery and Joanne Condon from Kyle Lane. So this evening, just to kind of set the scene, so we're on a webinar style Zoom, so you won't be able to see yourself, but you can still ask questions in the chat function or in the Q&A, and we might just stop during the webinar and just pick up on those questions as we go along. So if you have any questions, just pop them in there. There's Joanne, we can see her now. Hi there, we can see you. So before we kind of kick off with the intros around with the guys, just a little bit of a background. Most people here probably know about Fundit, but just to kind of give you a background, we were established in 2011. Since then, the platform has raised over €5 million for over 1,100 projects. So we're an all-island crowdfunding platform. There's other big guys out there, but we support Irish projects, Irish creative projects in 12 different categories. Two of those categories are design and enterprise, which we're focusing on this evening. And we have two Joannes now, which is great. So, but also we're kind of overlapping as well on publishing as well, because Joanne actually used her funded campaign to produce a beautiful book, which we're going to be hearing a little bit more about this evening. Two main points about Fundit that you should know if you're thinking of using us. So we're a rewards-based platform, which means that project creators create rewards to give to their funders. So in return for a pledge from a funder, you would provide them with some type of product or some type of gift or something. So for a musician, it could be their album. It could be they could serenade somebody, one of their one loved one on Zoom for maybe €500, or get the album for €20. And I think especially for design, craft makers, it's a really, really interesting model to use for pre-sales and that type of thing. The other point is that Fundit is all or nothing. So if you do not reach the target that you've set yourself, you won't get any funds. So that's just something to bear in mind. That's the model that we use, and there are models out there. But I suppose from our perspective, we think that, if that's the target that you've set, that's the expectation that your funders will have around how you're going to actually manifest and produce that project or the product. So if you were only to get, let's say, half the amount of funding, you might not actually produce the project in the way that you envisaged. So that's kind of the kind of big technical stuff out of the way about Fundit. But now I'm going to introduce our panelists this evening. So firstly, I'm going to say hello to Elaine. Hi, Elaine. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, Michelle. How are you?
Good, very good. So thanks for being here. So Elaine is the founder of Brookwood Pottery, which was established in 2012. And in 2017, Elaine ran a Fundit project to help, I suppose, the funding of your open access pottery, which is to help to train people in how to do pottery, and that's why you're a trained potter yourself. So your target was around 15,000, and you raised over €16,000, which is amazing. So congratulations. I suppose just as an opening question, so you had been working on your business since 2012. What made you kind of arrive at the point where you decided to go down the crowdfunding route?
Basically, I had come to a kind of crisis point in the business, and I had spent those 5 previous years from 2012 to 2017 doing a lot of wholesaling. So at that stage, by 2017, I was supplying 12 or 13 shops, including 5 Kilkenny designs, and I just wasn't making any money, Michelle. So I knew that I had to I was kind of faced with the option of quitting or reinventing it. So I decided that I was going to pivot, as they say now, the business, and that the way forward was through teaching and creating a community of people that would use the pottery, and so diversify my income stream.
Okay,
That's
great.
really why I did it. And also then I had been aware from friends and from my husband's friends people who were singers and photographers, people I'd met, you know, through markets and design, that crowdfunding was an option.
Okay, great. And fast forwarding to where you are now, and we'll get to the crowdfunding bit in the middle. So where are you now with your business out in Santry?
Okay, so now with the business, I run a shop at the front of the studio, and I do classes as well. So the business is, I would say, 50-50 at this stage. 50% of my income would be from classes, and the other half would be, well, actually probably not 50-50, maybe 60-40. 60 with retail and then 40% with the classes. So it's actually developed a lot more into a design shop rather than you know, more than I had envisaged it.
Okay, great. Okay, Joanne, I think we have you there on visuals as well, which is great.
Oh, great. I can't see, but that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we can see you, which is lovely, which is great.
Good.
Thanks for joining us, Joanne, as well.
No problem.
Joanne is, as you can see, very creative, beautiful colours in the background there in your house. So Joanne is the founder of Kyle Lane, which is an upcycling furniture shop in Clonmel. And Joanne did a crowdfunding project with us with Fundit in 2016. So, but these two ladies, having them on call together is really, really interesting, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I suppose your crowdfunding project was not your business for your business, for your shop specifically, but it was for a tutorial book called Furniture Crush, which was around painting and upcycling furniture. And so I suppose my first question to you is, how did you come about that as, you know, as your idea, you know, for your crowdfunding project, and how did you moved into that with your business?
I suppose when I started upcycling, I would have loved a book like the one I created to help me along. You know, there's so much to learn. There's so much experimentation. It's like, I suppose it's an ever evolving creative outlet, like painting furniture and upcycling. There's always new techniques and stuff on the scene. So I actually started teaching workshops very slowly, and when I realized that there was even after the workshops, like attendees would be like, what's next, what do we do now, like what else can we learn? I thought that maybe there was a little gap where a book was really well needed, like where, you know, sometimes if you go to a workshop for the day and you learn like loads of new techniques, and then maybe like a few months down the line you want to pick one back up, your memory mightn't go straight back to that time. So I thought it'd be nice to have a book where there was loads of little pointers and different projects and new things to try and evolve, I suppose, people's skills that they learned on the workshop, and people that maybe have a little bit of knowledge about painting furniture but wanted to expand it. So it was very quick. I remember I drove into town one day and was like, I'm going to write a book. and that was it. You know, I just made that decision very quickly. And then I suppose why I went to Fundit then was I had read some articles about crowdfunding and about the kind of marketing side of it, and how in like I suppose elevate your business by like marketing, I suppose, in a different way and getting attention on your business using a completely different method. And I suppose it was I had actually Lorna Sixsmith as well. I had a book where she I was the illustrator for her book. Do you know how Would You Marry a Farmer? And I suppose that's how I really got introduced to the whole Fundit thing. And I loved that it was Irish as well. That was a crowdfunding, but it was Irish based because we're great to look after our own too. So I was like I said I'd definitely go with the Irish Fundit. So that's kind of how it all snowballed into a book, I suppose.
Great. And then, so it's fast forwarding for you and the trajectory of that book. where is the book now, or what's happening with your business now?
So the book is sold. The book is sold out at the minute, and I never went to do a second print run because it's so much comes with it. So I live really remote, and like to get to the post office is half an hour's drive. So like if one book sells in a day, I'm like, oh, like that's good bit of time away. So I'm gonna bring it onto an ebook definitely. And my business has changed completely, and it always has done. It's always evolved very, very fast, and I suppose I try and always change with the times as well. So I had a retail shop where I had just selling furniture at the front, and I was doing the workshops in the back. And then when the book came out, I decided to do a tour to promote the book, but do workshops as well to try and encapsulate the whole thing. And then once I realized that if I left my own hometown, there was way more scope for like going to different places, and like all my workshops were selling out within 24 hours of putting them up, because like if somebody was from Dublin and they couldn't get to me, now I was going to them. So once I realized that I could go outside of my hometown and get a bigger audience, I was like, I actually don't need my premises, because I love teaching. I was a former teacher. I was an art teacher, so I was like, oh, like I loved kind of heading off for the weekend and like going to a different town, let's say. And then I was like, I actually have no use for premises now, because I didn't have time to paint stuff to sell in the shop and teach the workshops as well. So I was kind of faced with which one am I going to do. So I closed and went traveling around Ireland.
Great, and we'll come back to maybe at the end. We'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, because I know you kind of pivoted again, and I suppose during COVID and the digital world. But coming back to you, Elaine, we were talking before, just having a chat about, I suppose, when you're preparing for these crowdfunding campaigns and all of the different elements that you need to consider. And you had some interaction with Joanne for your project. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I suppose for anyone listening, I suppose in terms of having a mentor who's been through a funded campaign, I know Joanne, you've a bit to say about that as well in terms of the process and what it taught you. But Elaine, maybe do you want to take that up first?
Definitely. Joanne was my funded mammy during this campaign. She was so good and kind to me during it. I had met Joanne at a few Dublin flea markets, and I think we were beside each other at one or two of them. We had the crack, and I knew that she had done the funded book, and I contacted her, and she was just really good, and she kept in contact with me throughout the funded the campaign. And you know, she shared ideas with me on what to do, and like I copied some of her ideas, like live Facebook events and things like that. And she was just brilliant, because she was so generous with her ideas and time, and just that kind of little bit of support with somebody who had been through it. And you know, especially at moments where there were definitely moments during the campaign where it lulled, and I'd text something to Joanne and she'd just say exactly the right thing in a text to give me, you know, to raise my spirits, to, you know, for me to push on. So she was brilliant, and the moral support she gave me was amazing. I really, you know, it was fantastic. Yeah, so I was just very lucky, and I think it was just it was just to know that somebody had been through it before, could understand it, and could give you advice on it.
Yeah, and I mean, so from at Fundit, we talked to all of our project creators during the submission process. So we would have talked to you guys when you were submitting, and we would work with you on getting that project together so that it's ready to go online. And you probably, you know, it's a long time ago now, you might not remember it so freshly now, but we challenge our project creators to say, like, is this the best that you can do? You know, what about the imagery that you have and the video and the narrative that you have around your project? And Joanne, I mean, you as well, you had, I suppose, probably a lot of stuff prepared for the book that you were able to use for the campaign. Is that kind of how you found that you have kind of a lot of content there to use already?
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of content. I knew what people wanted from the workshops as well. So I knew what people were looking out for, so I could word things in such a way that I could connect with them because I knew exactly what they wanted. So it was easier to kind of tell people what exactly I was doing without overcomplicating it or having any kind of mystery on the book. So I think that definitely helped.
Okay. And for you, Elaine, as well, I suppose, you know, you had the mentoring help and then the more kind of practical side of it in terms of like your visuals as well were really strong and your video. I mean, how did you put that together yourself or did you have support around that?
No, I had great help with it. I'm really lucky because my husband's a photographer. So a lot of the product shots, a lot of the, actually most the shots in the studio were done by another photographer called Christine Burns, but I understood the value of a good image because of Donald's work, and also I'm a visual person like Joanne, and like Joanne's images were excellent, and I just knew that's what the project hinged on. And I had researched a lot of other crowdfunding campaigns, and I could see what was good and what wasn't good and what worked and what didn't work. So I used a lot of the other campaigns as templates. You know, I didn't look just in Ireland, I looked in the UK and Scotland as well. So that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All that information is out there for you to learn from.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point as well, Elaine. It's, you know, there are so many projects out there that have been successful and like the model is there. And I think, as you say, you know, getting inspired by other projects, looking at, well, why have they been successful? Like, what are the common denominators between these projects? Usually you'll find that it's really strong visuals, a compelling video, a clear statement of who you are, what the project is about, where the money is going, and why you're doing crowdfunding. And I suppose that's where we come in to try and really streamline all of that and fine tune it with you. But I suppose, you know, from our perspective, when projects come in, I always say they're not going to be perfect, so don't try and be perfect. Like many perfectionists out there will try, but send in a draft and you'll work on it, and it is a work in progress before it goes live. Like once you press the submit button, it's just coming to our team, it's not going live on the website. But Joanne, in terms of your sort of research before you or as you were preparing your project, was there anything that kind of stood out to you in terms of your kind of researching and preparing the project?
Like Elaine as well, I would have looked at a lot of previous campaigns, and then I got an ebook as well online. It was a very short one, but there was great little tips in there. I read multiple posts about people and their experience with crowdfunding. Yeah, I knew Lorna, but I wasn't in contact with her, and I was afraid to ask them. So, but like I would have done I would have asked her a few questions. I went to a Fundit talk as well, which was really, really good with Andrew in Kilkenny, and actually Lorna was speaking at that as well, so I got a chance to after too, and more insight into maybe what was to be expected.
Yeah, and I think a question that a lot of people ask, and one of the first questions is just in terms of like your target and how do you come up with that target, and how do you know if you're going to reach that level? And like the two of you, I suppose you'd probably be in the kind of the upper region, like the average project target on Fundit would probably be around maybe 6,000 to 8,000 euro, but you guys were kind of up there at the kind of 15 or 12, 15,000. But in terms of the target, Elaine, how did you come about that figure? Because I know that you had other funding sources as well. So how did you arrive at that figure?
For me, it was based on kitting out the studio. So I priced all of the equipment that I needed. I got a rough price on what electrics would be, and you know, furniture, and I just did up a budget. I did a budget of what I would need to buy the equipment for the pottery, what I would need to spend on ESB, what I would need to spend on fixtures and fittings, and that's the price I came up with then.
And then also rewards and delivering rewards. That's something else that needs to be fit into your targets. So we'll get your rewards, Elaine, because I know we've chatted about that before. And Joanne, in terms of your budget, was probably based on the figures around the publication and printing costs and everything like that.
Yeah, it was very, yeah. You know, at the stage, you're not written like color pictured with, like, you know, there's just so much. But it was hard to pay on that cost, but like, right, so much involved. There's so much involved in a book, like, so. And printing costs would have been my highest output, like.
Okay, yeah. And in terms of like other funding sources, Elaine, because I know that you had received, was it a grant? Was that before or after your crowdfunding campaign? Was there another grant?
I did, well, the crowdfunding campaign let me go to the bank. So then I took out another loan for 10,000 from the bank. And I had applied for a grant for a full-time employee, but between the jigs and the reels, I didn't end up taking that.
Okay.
But yeah, but they were, one kind of enabled the other. And that's the savings I had. Oops.
Okay. And so moving on to the kind of promotion of your campaign. And there's just to say, there's a lot of information about sort of how to put your project together and how to come up with rewards and how to structure it on our creator handbook on our website. If anyone's interested in taking a look into kind of deeper into that part of the preparation of a project. Moving on to when a project is live and it's online, in terms of PR and promotion and marketing, Elaine, you got some really good coverage on different news, I think a few radio stations and the paper. So how did you kind of go about sourcing those contacts?
I in a previous kind of incarnation, I would have been the marketing officer for an arts organization. So I was familiar with how to kind of contact people and write and write a kind of a snappy email to the point, you know, keeping it short, interesting, and, you know, so I would have just contacted arts editors, and then local newspapers, local radio stations, and how and also then Joanne would have mentored me in that, and she would have said, oh, write to so and so and so and so. So Joanne had great coverage as well, was on TV AM and all this stuff. But the one thing that I thought was, I kind of just thought of it, but I went on a local radio station, and my aim was to get on the business on Radio 1, because it was my favorite radio program. I'm a business geek and I love listening to it at 10 AM on Radio 1. And I said, I would just love to be on that program. And for some, I don't know, it was inspiration, but I knew I was on a local radio station on Dublin North Side, Dublin FM, or I don't know which one it was. And I emailed the producer of Radio 1, the business, and I said, I'm going to be on this radio station at this time if you want to listen to it and decide whether I'm a head case or not. So so that's, and they did, somebody did, and then I got a call to say, you know, there's a reporter going out. So again, it was good visuals, a short email, maybe followed up by phone calls sometimes, and then taking kind of pointers from, you know, like Joanne would have given me help with that as well.
Yeah, and Joanne, because I know you have said when we were chatting that you've actually learned a lot from the Fundit campaign that you brought forward with you kind of in your business in the years after that. So what are the kind of things that you implemented in your Fundit campaign that you're still using now?
So the PR side would have been my biggest learning curve, my hardest and biggest learning curve. So I would have looked up how to write a press release, sent it off to loads of, like, anyone I could think of. And there was a point where nobody had gotten back to me. And I was like, I wrote it exactly the way I was supposed to write it. I couldn't understand. And then I suppose I was like, I'm going to have to change tack. So I did a few small things, like the local radio station. I had emailed them and I hadn't heard back. So I went up with a pack, like with an upcycling pack. And I researched like what show I might want to be on. And I addressed the pack to a specific person that was the presenter of the show and handed it in. And then I got a call back like maybe the next day from that. And there I was on the show next week. So I learned small like things like that. Another thing I did is I emailed a lot of the main places that I wanted to be on again, press release, and then I sent them another email like I was a whole new person. And I suppose not like a PR press release, more just about my story, about my journey, and about what I was trying to do. And I think that worked really, really well. I got callbacks really fast. I was on the Sunday Business Show, and like everything just started clicking off from there. But it was very much towards the end of my crowdfunding campaign. So a little bit of panic, a little bit of pressure, and I suppose just thinking on the spot. You know, like I suppose it's good when you're creative because you've got that creative brain where you can switch it up and be like, this isn't working, I need to change it like as fast as you can, I suppose. And that problem solving thing. But just how to contact people, I learned absolutely massively. Even the like Twitter I found really good for just getting the word out about having a crowdfunding campaign as well, just connecting with other businesses. I found that really, really good as well. But I just learned so much on the PR side, tagging other businesses, reaching out in relationships with. I wish I had done that before. I was always kind of afraid to build a relationship with them initially. You know, I would have just kind of liked their stuff, I suppose. But building relationships, I wish if I went back again, I would have started that before the crowdfunding campaign, because I think it really helps, you know, like whether that's the paint company or somebody that you can talk to. Another massive thing I did as well was I wanted to be on the Ryan Tubridy show. Now I didn't get on it, but I painted I upcycled a chair with his face on it, and I just posted it up to him to try and get attention, and he put it on his Facebook page. So that kind of, you know, like it kind of filtered in a little bit. So I just tried absolutely everything. I just tried whatever I thought of, I tried it.
Yeah, okay, we might see a flurry of different potteries and different things now with Ryan Tubridy's face on it. We'll see if anyone takes that on. But Tubbs is always great for that. Well, I think the interesting thing as well is in terms of, and you know, there are a lot of people who will come on to Fundit and say, you know, I'm not into marketing or I'm not into PR, but I suppose we provide a lot of the tools and we kind of guide people through steps around kind of putting that together. But the other thing as well is, and I suppose the two of you had really compelling stories to tell, and the story wasn't, I'm doing a crowdfunding project. It was really more about your business and what you were trying to do, and that was the hook. And I suppose in this day and age, you know, crowdfunding now, it's old news. So I suppose it's finding like what is that kernel of your story that you can use kind of to show the impact or the kind of, you know, the transformative thing that you're trying to do with your business, or where you've come from and where you're trying to get to. And I think you both really had that in your story, and, you know, it really came through, and it was very kind of easy, I suppose, once you had all the other pieces put together already, the visuals, the nice video and all of that stuff. It's kind of easier as well for press and for producers to kind of process it all, because they're getting bombarded with these stories all the time and trying to actually kind of you know, digest it really quickly and say, okay, that is a story that, you know, we could run with either in the paper or whether it's on the radio. So yeah, that's great.
I think, Joanne, if you look at the two projects that we did as well, the thing about, I think that the common two things I think about both of them were there was a participation element to it, that people could get involved in the workshops, and then that they could learn. So there was a tangible, it was very clear what was in it for the supporter, you know, that they were going to be going to a workshop to learn how to paint, they were going to get this book, they were going to learn how to make pottery, there was going to be a pottery in their area. So it really was to spell out what was in it for the pledger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into talking about rewards, because I suppose that's such a massive part of campaign, not only in terms of, I suppose, what you're going to offer, which is essentially what people are funding or pledging to do or buying, depending on what model you have or what you're actually offering. But then also, I suppose, the delivery of it afterwards, which can be quite time consuming. Elaine, I know you have a bit to say about that. But I suppose, Elaine, do you want to maybe give us a run through of maybe a few of your rewards, and I suppose in terms of delivery and kind of your learnings from that process?
This is where my eye will start to twitch. So I had pledges from €10 up to 500. So it went from an invitation to the opening night and a glass of wine, to a day at a pottery, to a corporate outing, to pottery classes for children, pottery classes for adults, and then different items like a vase, a cup, a bowl, a printed apron. So there was a huge range of items, yeah.
Okay, and then in terms of the delivery of it afterwards, I suppose just to give people an idea, you might have, I can't remember how many funders you had, but I suppose if you know, you could end up having 200 funders or 250 funders, and we essentially, once we have processed all of the pledges, we hand over all the details to the project creator, and you have to contact everyone individually. So if there's postage, you're going to need to get the postal addresses from them. We don't collect that information. If you have to arrange a date for a workshop or for something individual, you have to arrange that. So I suppose in terms of your own capacity, I know, Elaine, you were doing a lot of it yourself in terms of delivering all of that.
Well, I had 2 employees at the time, so I couldn't have done it without them. I would say that we spent at least 7 or 8 months after that of the first year in business paying those pledges back. So people should be very aware of the intense amount of work involved in getting those pledges back, and the fact that your reputation and your standing as a business depends on that. So it was a huge amount of work, and if I had to do it again, I would not have done as many classes, because time is money, and it was a huge amount of work. It was a huge learning curve, and it affected how the rest of the business actually evolved. I don't regret it. I learned so much from it, but people should be very careful about how much time it is going to take. You have to really be realistic about that to repay these, because you will be working that period of time for, the money will have already come in. You probably will have already spent it. So I think that you have to be very clever about how you give those rewards.
Yeah, and we would advise people as well, when we we would run through rewards and just get a sense of, do you understand how much this time this potentially could take, especially if there's a huge amount of rewards. And I suppose when people go into the realm of merchandise, I suppose I'm not talking about makers and something that, a product that you're making specifically and you would have it in your practice already, but perhaps, people who start doing cups and t-shirts and mugs, etc., on top of what they're actually trying to do as their project. And it's always just, delivery of that, the ordering, the costs of that, the postage, the packaging, getting it out to everybody. So it's kind of thinking about everything, as you say, as logically and in a sensible way as possible. And there's no time frame. I got asked that the other day in terms of how long do you have to deliver your rewards to your funders? And the answer is as long as it takes. We always say just to try and manage people's expectations as best you can. Like, things happen, like COVID, or printing deadlines change or something, or the supplier. But out of all of your funders, you might get 1 or 2 who would, their noses might seriously be out of joint, and that might just be because they really wanted the product or something for somebody's birthday on a specific date or something like that. But the majority of people are understanding if you have to shift timelines a little bit. And sometimes people don't deliver their rewards. Mostly I'm talking probably about musicians, just by the nature of when they're doing their album. But sometimes, I mean, there was a guy, I think, who delivered his album maybe 6 years later, which was, you know, this email popped up saying I'm finished. But normally you're kind of looking at kind of maybe 6 months, you know, would be kind of like a normal time frame that people would expect it in. But Joanne, yours was, I suppose, different in terms of the main reward you had was your book, but you did have other rewards as well.
Yeah, so I offered like workshops would have been my main thing. Like I would have given different workshops in my business, like so a chair workshop and a furniture techniques workshop. So it worked out okay that way for me, because I put on loads of different workshops, and like anyone who had pledged for a workshop got it, but then I could fill the rest of the class with the public. So things kind of it kept everything ticking over for me, like I suppose in that sense. But then I came up with some problems with that my book. Actually, I ended up photographing it, being the photographer as well. And then my quote for formatting was absolutely mental, because every page is nearly different. There's no set format that you could have feed it through, and that's just the way I wanted it. So I just learned in design. Like I learned in design, and then I formatted to computers anyway. So all of those things took more time, but I suppose I ended up with a book that it's exactly what I wanted it to look like, because I had it in my head. Like I used to, in my head, flick the pages all the time, so I knew exactly where I wanted everything. So like if a shot wasn't what I wanted photography wise, I could go back and I could rejig it, you know, that kind of way. But yeah, I had total control over my end product, I suppose, which was the book, and then the workshops filtered out. So it was really good that way. Like so yeah, I like, the only thing I didn't do with the book was print edit it, and I had an absolutely brilliant editor, Maria Moynihan, who kept me going through the whole process. Like, but other than that, I suppose that is a lot of time. But I learned so much, and I loved the whole process of putting that book together as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. And in terms of the amount of funders that you had who bought the book rather than the workshops, was there a kind of a balance, or how many of the funders would have bought the book as part of their rewards?
So a good number would have bought a workshop with the book. Like,
okay,
would have been, I think, majority of people would have bought the workshop with the book. I think there wasn't, the few I write was just the book, but it was mostly people with a workshop.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it depends. Like if anyone's interested in doing a publishing project for a book, we have in December, we're going to have another panelist on who produced their first children's book. So that might be of interest to people as well. But we find, I suppose it depends as well what the project creator is offering. But a lot of time with those publishing projects on Fundit, they can be sometimes the most pledged reward is the book. So we've had a few really beautiful books recently, and it's actually a great model, because essentially you're just pre-selling the book using Fundit, and then you have the funding, you can go and print it, and then you can distribute the book that way. I'm just looking at the time, and so hopefully we'll finish up in maybe at 7:45, and I know everyone's had lots of Zoom calls and different things, but just to kind of tie things up, and I know it was a while ago, and but if, I suppose, coming back to you, Elaine, if there was one thing that you would do differently if you were going to do another crowdfunding project, what would you say to any listeners out there?
I think, it would have been pricing the really taking into consideration time, time for workshops. How much will a workshop, take, and anything that involves your time afterwards, like it has to be priced, you know, properly, and I would veer towards, with regard to, if it was, you know, kind of setting up a business like what I did, I would probably veer towards something like, you know, pledging a book, or, you know, doing a product rather than having something that's too time heavy, because it's just like pre-sales of a book are different than pre-sales of a class. When you know, it's like the book is finished and made and done. Pre-selling your time, if it's your time that you're pre-selling, just be very, that's what I would say, be very careful.
Yeah. And Joanne, with you, any kind of, if you were going to do something differently, if you're going to do another project?
I would have spent a bit more time building relationships before I launched. But other than that, I like, it was a very learn, but best way to learn is the hard way. I totally like, I think it is the best way to learn. So like, I do it again. I do it all over again. And
We're going to hold you to that, Joanne.
yeah, is
it your ebook?
With the ebook, with it?
I missed the question. Did I know?
Oh, we lost you there. We're just saying we'll hold you to that for your second funded campaign.
I know it was hard, but it was a learning curve in my business, definitely. And everything I learned on that campaign, I definitely brought with me throughout my business. Like, so it's absolutely massive. I never expected to learn so much, I think.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to hear. It's great. And guys, just to finish up, I suppose, in terms of thank you for all of your generous insights. We really, really appreciate you coming on this evening. But in terms of Elaine, what are you up to at the moment with Brookwood Pottery?
Just having a very busy Christmas. So online, the website, really putting a lot of work in that and expanding the products on the website. So we're just focusing on retail for Christmas, and then New Year will bring new classes, and hopefully face-to-face contact with customers and you know, students. But we'll see. But for now, it's just all focus on Christmas.
Great. And there's some really gorgeous stuff there on the website. And I always get really excited when I arrive at a market and I'm like, oh, there's Brookwood Pottery. I'm always very excited. And Joanne, how about you? What are you up to at the moment with all of your everything?
Well, COVID, doing workshops all around Ireland, and then COVID didn't really like work out very well, I suppose, in that sense. So I brought all my workshops online. So I'm just filming, editing, and getting them out there, and I'm delighted. It's something I always wanted to do but never had the time, so it's great to have a focus like that, be able to work from home and like pour your heart into another project, same thing but in a totally different way. Like, so I'm really enjoying that at the minute. I'm getting great feedback, and there's a great structure to it as well. So yeah, just total flip.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. And those workshops, are they Irish people attending them, or like people in Ireland, or are there international people able to attend them as well?
Ireland, the UK, Spain. So my customer base is definitely after expanding. People that would have followed me on Instagram, let's say, that would never have been able to get workshops. So it's very eye-opening, I suppose.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. So Elaine and Joanne, thank you. And thanks as well to the Design Crafts Council of Ireland, who supported us with promotion for this. If anyone has any specific questions around a project that they'd like to submit to Fundit, please send an email to info@fundit.ie, and one of the team, either myself or one of the team, will pick that up and we can contact you. And yeah, it's been a delight, and hope to see you guys soon. I'll be logging on to have a look and see what your both offerings are for Christmas presents, to try and get it all ticked off the list before December hits. But in the meantime, guys, stay safe. Thanks a million, and chat soon.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Michelle. Bye, Joanne.
Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.